All right, we start top story tonight with that unprecedented strike against the nation's big three automakers. At midnight last night, the United Auto Workers Union announcing a strike against Ford, GM, and Stellantis, which manufactures Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge vehicles. Nearly 13,000 workers walking off the job at plants in Missouri, Michigan, and Ohio. You see it right there, with more walkouts likely as this stoppage stretches on. And here are where the two sides stand on the major issues tonight. Look closely here so you understand it. That's why we put it up here. UAW asking for a wage increase of more than 40% over the next 3 years. The big three sitting around 20% for an increase. The union also pushing for a 32-hour work week and adjustments for inflation. President Biden, who described himself as the most pro-union president in history, tonight encouraging both sides to stay at the table for as long as it takes, urging automakers to make a record offer to their workers. NBC's Jesse Kirsch is on the ground with those picketers in Michigan tonight, and he leads us off.
Across the Rust Belt, instead of standing on the assembly line, tonight thousands of United Auto Workers are being told to protest on the picket line. Now! With no new deals between the UAW and the big three, overnight, the union told almost 13,000 workers to walk off the job at 3 assembly plants. Jeep owner Stellantis in Toledo, Ohio.
What we want is a better contract. We all deserve it.
General Motors near St. Louis.
It's only fair that they pay us back for what we've been doing for them.
And outside Detroit, Ford, which late today announced it has laid off roughly 600 non-striking employees, saying the walkout in some departments has directly impacted the operations in other parts of the facility.
Let's be clear. No one wants a strike.
Today, President Biden announcing he's sending 2 top aides to Detroit to help with negotiations.
The companies have made some significant offers, but I believe they should go further to ensure record corporate profits mean record contracts.
The union demands include a large pay bump, pensions, and retiree health care. Stellantis says it's extremely disappointed in the UAW's leadership. The CEOs of Ford and General Motors say their current offers are historic.
This is a very good offer, and, we want you back.
Today, GM chief Mary Barr telling me the consequences of a shutdown could reach far beyond the assembly line.
For every GM job, there's 6 other jobs that are associated with it, and that's why the ripple effect can happen so fast. It's not going to be good for the economy. It's not going to be good for anyone.
Ford and GM both say they got their first substantive UAW counteroffers late yesterday. But the union says it's the big three dragging their feet.
You've got competitors for these big three automakers paying a lot less in some cases for labor than these companies. How can you expect to actually get everything you're asking for?
Shame on those competitors, number one. All this is the companies are trying to drive a race to the bottom, and we're better than that. America's better than that.
Right now, less than 10% of UAW's roughly 146,000 union auto workers are on strike. But it's having a big impact.
This is not just a small strike. You are taking out 15% of everything that they build here in the U.S. And these are high-profit vehicles.
Either you're with the billionaire class or you're with the working class.
Tonight, union leaders rallying support as the two sides publicly appear no closer to a deal.
All right, Jesse Kirsch joins us now live tonight with those picketers there in Detroit. So, Jesse, are we already starting to see some of the ripple effects from the strike?
Yeah, we are, Tom. Beyond what we now have learned from Ford tonight, GM saying that because of the strike at its Missouri plant, another plant could run out of parts, leading to 2,000 non-striking workers being temporarily laid off as soon as early next week. Meanwhile, here in downtown Detroit, this group of protesters and marchers just finishing up a rally. Tom?
Yeah, so many different groups attached to this protest and to this strike. Okay, Jesse Kirsch, thanks for leading us off tonight. Auto workers now preparing for the reality of a prolonged strike and taking to the picket lines across those 3 plants, as we saw in Jesse's report there. I do want to bring in tonight the top story, Tiffany Siemens. She's a UAW member who works at Ford's Michigan assembly plant as a production team leader. Tiffany, thank you for joining Top Story tonight. You've been there, from what I understand, 15 years. Tell our viewers, when was the last time you got a bump in your pay or any type of promotion?
The last time would probably be 8 years into my full-time employment with Ford Motor Company. That was the last major bump in my pay that I got.
So it's been a while. It's been almost 7 years since you've seen a bump in your pay.
It's been a while.
You know, we heard there from GM's CEO, Mary Barra. She called her company's offer generous. It doesn't come close to what UAW is asking for. What's your reaction to that?
It's easy for someone that makes so much more than the middle-class person to say that what they're offering us is generous. It is laughable. It is insulting. It's a slap to the face of every middle-class auto worker anywhere in the U.S.
You know, we heard from the UAW president, Shawn Fain, in Jesse's report, but he also said, quote, if we need to go all out, we will. To you, what does that mean?
To me, that means a lot more sacrifices are made, but it's for the greater good.
How much more can you sacrifice, though? I mean, if you can explain to our viewers, how are you living now, day to day? How do you plan to live if this goes on for weeks?
Well, right now, everyone it's very, very fresh. It's been less than 24 hours, but we've been prepping for this. Every contract, this is a pattern. Every contract, we start at the beginning of the year, we start to prep just in case in the event of a strike.
What does that mean? You mean saving money? You mean not buying things?
It means saving money. It means being aware of what's going on with contract talks, making sure that we're involved in the process within our locals, within our regions, within our UAW.
What's it like to be sort of part of one of the backbone industries of America? You always think of, you know, auto manufacturers as an American company you can be proud of, and now trying to fight for a wage increase and having to strike to get that?
It's very disheartening because we build something that's used every day, everywhere, not just in the U.S., but everywhere. We build something that is dependent. People depend on it to get their family safely from point A to B. We built something that literally holds people's lives. And I don't think people understand that. Everyone has gotten a pay increase except for the people that are actually doing the work.
Can you explain the 32-hour work week to our viewers? Some people may be thinking 40-hour work weeks, but a lot of people maybe work more than that. But where does the 32-hour come from?
The 32 hours, from what I know, it was something that we've tried to fight for in the past. But the 32-hour work week, that's the least of our problems right now. Right now, our biggest fight is to end the tiers. You end the tiers, that's a monumental victory. It's not just about money. It's about the quality of life that an auto worker has right now. A job that once could feed entire families just with one income. Now we're barely getting by with what we have. Everybody's gotten a profit off of our work but us.
Tiffany Simmons, she works at Ford. She is striking tonight. We will be thinking about you, and we'll be continuing to cover this story as it plays out. We do want to move on now to our other major story. We're following Hurricane Lee, a large and dangerous Cat 1 storm marching towards the Northeast. Officials in Maine and Massachusetts declaring states of emergency. Kathy Park has the latest from the storm zone.
Tonight, Hurricane Lee turning up powerful waves up and down the coast as the storm picks up speed and moves closer to New England.
We were going to go away this weekend. We said, no, we better stay home.
Massachusetts and Maine declaring a state of emergency, bracing for strong winds, rain, and coastal flooding.
Know your zone. Learn if you live in an evacuation zone. And if you do live in an area that's prone to flooding, you should be prepared to evacuate if necessary.
Marinas taking no chances. This one in Portland clearing out all of their vessels ahead of the storm.
In my 11 years down here, we've had a full haul out like this about once.
Emergency responders getting ready too.
This doesn't happen often. We don't usually see a hurricane come up to and hit the Maine coast. We are usually prepared for winter and storm.
The Portland Fire Department giving us a preview of what's to come.
So how does your department get ready for a storm like this?
We're upstaffing, especially on the Marine Division with the fireboat here. We're going to up staff on the islands as well.
Even though Hurricane Lee is weakening and hours away from making landfall, it's growing, with tropical storm force winds extending hundreds of miles outside the storm's path.
The white caps that you see way off in the distance,
right on the horizon.
That we never see that. Already you can see that it's picking up.
Lee getting dangerously close, with Nova Scotia now on high alert, expecting a direct hit this weekend.
Tom, as you can see, the winds and the waves are already starting to kick up, and this will only intensify during the overnight hours. Some spots could reach up to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts come tomorrow morning, and this could lead to coastal flooding as well as dangerous beach conditions. Tom?
Okay, Kathy, thank you for that. For more on Hurricane Lee's path up the East Coast, NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joins me now in studio. So, Bill, you obviously are always very sobering on these nights. Talk us through Hurricane Lee and what maybe we should be worried about.
If I was in Down East Maine, I'd be charging my devices and planning for a couple days without power. That's probably the worst of it, possibly on Cape Cod, too. Other areas, I think you're going to skirt through this just fine. So the storm itself is going to about 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon be near landfall near Nova Scotia, near Yarmouth. So that means Down East Maine will be the closest to what we call the center of this storm. But it already doesn't even look like a hurricane. It looks like a big, huge nor'easter. And that pretty much is what we're going to be dealing with, minus the snow, of course, and instead dealing with the rain. So the tropical storm force winds are shown in yellow. They've now moved into areas of Cape Cod. Typically, when you get around 50 to 60-mile-per-hour gusts, you start to lose power. We haven't gotten there yet. We're at 47-mile-per-hour gusts on Nantucket, Provincetown at 33. Later tonight during the overnight, if you're going to lose power in the Cape, that's when it would happen. That's when the strongest winds will be with you. And here's our wind forecast. The max gust, Provincetown, the Nantucket, about upper 50s on the Cape. So that's isolated power outages, not widespread. Down East Maine, 59 to about 60. The problem there is that it's been a rainy, and so the trees don't have the roots, and they're all kind of mushy, so they may tip over more easily, and that's why we could also deal with 2 to 4 inches of rain. So Down East Maine is my real concern. I'm not concerned with the storm surge. Looks like we're going to skirt through that, too.
Okay, Bill Cairns for us tonight. Bill, we thank you for that. I want to bring you an update now on that Congresswoman who was kicked out of a theater in Colorado. Lauren Boebert's campaign manager had initially disputed claims that she had been vaping in the audience during the performance. But newly released surveillance video appears to show otherwise. NBC's Valerie Castro has those images for us tonight.
Tonight, surveillance video revealing the truth about the night Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert was kicked out of a theater, her version of events going up in smoke. After denials she was vaping inside a Denver theater during a musical performance of Beetlejuice, this video clears the air. Boebert is seen on video blowing smoke before the start of the show. The Colorado Republican representative is also seen dancing and clapping along to the music, her arm raised above her head, even using flash photography. A woman sitting behind her appears to lean over and say something to Boebert. At one point, her date is apparently unable to keep his hands to himself. Eventually, the couple is escorted from the theater, Boebert giving staff the middle finger and allegedly saying, "Don't you know who I am?" according to an incident report from the venue. Before this video revealed the true performance, her campaign manager denying the allegations that Boebert was kicked out for vaping, telling the Washington Post in a statement there might have been a misunderstanding from someone sitting near her, and attributing the source of the smoke to heavy fog machines and electronic cigarettes used in the show. NBC News has reached out to Drew Sexton, Boebert's campaign manager, and Boebert herself, but has not heard back. Boebert alluding to the incident, tweeting, "It's true. I did thoroughly enjoy the amazing Beetlejuice at the Buell Theater, and I plead guilty to laughing and singing too loud. Everyone should go see it if you get the chance this week, and please let me know how it ends." The end of that evening for Boebert and her date, holding hands and twirling into the night.
All right, Valerie Castro joins us now live in studio. Okay, clearly the video shows her appearing to vape. There was that hanky-panky you pointed out as well. But it didn't look like she was going nuts in her chair. There's more video, you're saying, and another audience member too complained?
Yes, if you watch more of the video, she continuously is raising her hands and dancing. Everyone around her is pretty subdued. The Denver Post has done...
She's at a different level than everybody.
She is. The Denver Post has done extensive reporting on this, and one of their reporters was able to interview the woman that was sitting directly behind her, and she tells the paper that she asked Lauren Boebert to stop vaping at one point. The woman is pregnant. She says Boebert told her no. She also tells the paper that at the intermission, admission, she and her husband were so fed up that they asked if they could change their seats. The usher told them that they were not the first to complain.
Wow. Okay, Valerie Castro. Beetlejuice, on the other hand, in Denver, getting a lot of publicity out of this, so maybe it's a great show. Thank you for that. Still ahead tonight, the store owner attacked a 60-year-old woman. Look at this, punched in the face while trying to stop a robber. The search tonight for that suspect. Plus, health officials in Kansas sounding the alarm over the West Nile virus that has led to at least 2 deaths in the state. The warning to residents tonight. All right, we're back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the urgent search for 2 suspects after a violent robbery in Los Angeles. Surveillance video shows a 60-year-old store owner trying to fend off the man who was stealing rare and collectible items. That's when the suspect turns around and punches her in the face before taking off. The store owner was taken to the hospital with serious face injuries. She says more than $5,000 worth of items were stolen. Kansas issuing a high-risk warning over the West Nile virus. The state's health department says 22 cases have been reported in Kansas just this year, including at least 3 deaths. Residents told to use insect repellent, especially at dusk and dawn hours. Keep screens on windows and doors and get rid of standing water. Anyone with weakened immune systems is urged to limit time outdoors. Georgia, Maryland, and Texas have also detected their first infections this year. And a consumer alert, a popular toy recall after the death of an infant. The Consumer Product Safety Commission saying the Chuckle and Roar Ultimate Water Beads activity kit poses a serious risk of injury or death if any of the items become ingested. At least one 10-month-old child has died. The recall affecting roughly 52,000 kits that have been sold. Okay, time now for the Americas and the passing of a giant in Latin American art and really art all over the world. Colombian-born painter and sculptor Fernando Botero died today at the age of 91, one of the most prolific artists known for his cartoonish, voluptuous figures. Juan Venegas has a look back at his life and legacy.
Tonight, the art world remembering Colombian legend Fernando Botero. The painter and sculptor known for his round, voluptuous, and inflated forms, passing at 91 today after an iconic decades-long career.
Yo quiero pintar mejor que todo el mundo. Mi vida es pintar.
Born in Medellin, Colombia in 1932, Botero grew up as the son of a salesman and a seamstress, starting to paint at a young age. He used money earned through art contests to study art in Europe, eventually arriving in New York City in the 60s with just $200 in his pocket and a new outlook on the form.
These are voluptuous figures, male, female, animals, children, and he was so interested in the voluptuousness of them to celebrate, I think, to celebrate the voluptuousness of life.
In 1961, an art curator purchased his now infamous painting Mona Lisa, age 12. The piece exhibited at the Museum of Modern Art in New York at the same time as the real Mona Lisa was displayed in the city's Metropolitan Museum of Art, catching the attention of the art world.
He really inserted himself in a way that made our art world in Manhattan a much more global and a much more exciting place.
His signature style became known as Boterismo, a style he even applied to his own self-portraits.
The moment he walks into his studio, somehow he seems 10 years younger because he's passionate about what he's doing.
Botero taking his larger-than-life figures to 3 dimensions, making sculptures that would become fixtures all around the world. Botero admires now mourning a cultural giant. His daughter, Lina Botero, telling a Colombian radio station he died of complications from pneumonia. Colombian President Gustavo Petro paying tribute to the biggest artist in his country's history, saying in a statement, the painter of our traditions and our defects, the painter of our virtues has died.
Everybody has to die. Botero will never die. He will be there in the art history of the world.
The legacy of an iconic artist living on in cities all around the globe. Juan Venegas, NBC News.
Okay, Juan Venegas first. We thank Juan for that. I want to bring in Gary Nader. He's owner of the Gary Nader Art Center in Miami and one of the biggest Botero collectors in the world. Gary, thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Top Story. You're obviously a fan of Botero for a long time. How did you get today's news and what was your reaction?
Very sad.
You know, we were very good friends, very close. And as you said, you know, we have the largest and most important collection in the world of Botero that I mostly purchase directly from him. Unexpected because I exchanged emails with him last week, and he was perfect. He was completely lucid. He was fantastically affable, amicable, and perfect. And I'm extremely surprised. I'm extremely surprised this happened so suddenly.
You know, Gary, we see some of those Boteros.
Because, you know,
we see some of the Botero paintings there behind you in a sculpture. What was it about his work that inspired you to start collecting his pieces?
Well, it's very simple. Botero was a great master, you know, was one of the greatest artists of the 20th and 21st century. And for me personally, it was a discovery the first time I saw one of his works in the MoMA. I was 15 years old, so I started studying his art. And one of the things that fascinated me the most was that, you know, when he was living in the 60s, by the way, in New York, the critics and collectors were telling him, listen, what you're doing is not fashionable now. What you're doing is not what people are looking for. You know, every great artist like yourself is doing abstract expressionism. And he said, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do my own art. I'm putting, you know, showing my country. I'm doing what I like to do, and I'm not going to change. And look at that. He didn't change and became the most known artist in the world. Because he's the most known artist in the world. I mean, Boterismo exists in every other in all the continents in the world.
Gary, what was it about his
really
art?
Fascinates me too.
Gary, what was it about his art that took off? Can you explain for people that aren't into art or art historians, why did his art suddenly take off?
Well, it didn't take off. It took a while, because you say take off, people might understand it was from day to night. He painted with the quality that he painted. He believed that he was doing was of quality, and he believed that his style was going to be absorbed, and he did. The greatest collectors and museums in the world, they start buying his art. And it took him a lot of years to become who he is today. But, you know, it's been accepted as one of the greatest, like I said before, one of the greatest artists in the world. And when you say the name Botero, you know, and you see a voluptuous or grand figure, not a fat figure, because he didn't like when people call his paintings, his objects fat, you see Botero. I mean, and that's unique. This is a man that everybody tried to convince him to change his style and his ways, and he stayed there, and he did his works with amazing convincement and quality. And the critics, the museums, the collectors recognize it, and like every other major artist, start buying his works. And
Gary,
and the prices keep increasing, and the interest kept increasing until today.
Gary, you know, there's this movement in America and really across the world, this body positivity movement. It's been going on for the last decade. And years ago, decades ago, Botero started, as you mentioned, painting people that were voluptuous. That were larger than life, if you will. What was he trying to say with his paintings?
What he was trying to say was very simple, you know. Through his volume, he created more sensuality. Through volume, he created grandeur. Through volume, he created his own style. And people seem to like it and understand it, and that's why he became so popular and so much in demand. Volume was a way for him to show grandiose, to show more than anything sensuality, a great sensuality on his work, and sarcasm and history and criticism, you name it all. He absorbed what the world was telling him at that time, and he put it on his own words, and it was very much accepted.
Gary Nader, we appreciate you. I am sorry for your loss. I know you were friends with the artist, so we're thinking about you and his family tonight. And thank you for talking to us about the Botero art. Back now with Top Stories Global Watch, and we begin in the Dominican Republic, which tonight has shut down its border with Haiti. The shutdown coming as the two nations spar over the construction of a canal on a shared river. The DR has argued the canal would divert water from its farmers and hurt crops. Dominican President Luis Abinader saying he will keep the border closed, quote, as long as necessary. And there is danger lurking in the waters of China after a powerful typhoon flooded farmlands. More than 70 crocodiles now roaming free in the Guangdong province after the powerful storm caused a lake at a commercial farm to overflow over the weekend. Emergency responders now searching flooded fields by boat. So far, 36 of the 70 crocodiles have been recaptured. Residents have been urged to avoid the water. Yeah, it's a good idea. And TikTok ordered to pay a massive sum for violating privacy regulations. European regulators fining the social media company $368 million, its largest financial penalty yet, for breaching several regulations related to children's safety, most notably for having accounts belonging to teenage users default to public instead of private. TikTok in a statement saying that it disagrees with the decision and the hefty sum imposed. We thank Joe Fryer for that report. We thank you for watching Top Story on this Friday. Thank you so much. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.